Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's 7:01. Let's say good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you, and nice to see you, those of you in the audience as well. As you know, this is the meeting of the Arundel County Charter Revision Commission. We are now in session, and tonight, actually, we will be holding our first public hearing this evening on the redistricting for the county. And we have another public hearing on Thursday evening this week, but that's going to be virtual. But before we get into our public hearing, we do have our administrative items to go over. But before that time, I just wanted to make a brief statement about what we're doing here this evening. And I think, as probably all of you know, especially if you're here in the room, I'm sure you've been involved in this process before. But every 10 years following the U.S. Census results, the County Council is required to appoint an Anne Arundel County Charter Revision Commission. The commission has several purposes, but one of those purposes is to evaluate the composition of the current county council districts and to make recommendations to the county council for any necessary adjustments to the boundaries of those districts. The goal of that is to ensure that each member of the county council represents about the same number of people to achieve equal representation for all. There are constitutional guidelines for redistricting that recommend ensuring the compactness and contiguity of the geographic area in each district and maintaining communities of interest. And as I said, tonight will be our first public hearing on the issue of redistricting in Anne Arundel County. Before we move into the map discussion that's on our agenda for our administrative items, I'd like to get approval of our minutes. We actually have minutes for the evening of November 29th and December 1st for the commission members to approve. I guess starting with the 29th, commission members have any changes to the meeting minutes for the 29th?
I make a motion we approve the minutes from the 29th of November.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Mr. Telford. I'm all in favor of approving the minutes. Say aye. 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 Great. All right, so our November 29th meeting minutes are approved. December 1st, any comments or changes to the meeting minutes from December 1st? I guess seeing none immediately. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the first?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Telford. A second?
Second.
Mr. Fleckenstein, thank you. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay, our meeting minutes are approved. So the first item on our agenda this evening, as you probably know, we did have a smaller subgroup, worked with the Office of Planning and Zoning to help develop a couple iterations of maps for our consideration. Those Planning and Zoning has been working hard over the past several days to do that. And in the beginning, we're going to have them present on those iterations of maps. You see we have the nice, beautiful maps sitting here in the council chambers for everyone to take a look at and see. And I believe Mr. Burt will be presenting those, and he'll be providing an overview of the current council districts, an iteration from Plan 4B, which relates back to one of the simple adjustment maps that the Office of Planning and Zoning prepared for us a couple of weeks ago, and Plan 6B, which is an iteration of a map that Commissioner Tories, Mr. Snow, presented at the meeting on November 29th. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Burt when he's ready to go. That's okay. I guess, Mr. Burt, while you're getting that ready, I guess I just will make a quick comment and really say thank you. I know when you sent the information about the maps and the iterations, I did find that it was very easy to go in and use when you had the 2 iterations to go through, kind of zero in on the changes. The descriptions were very, very helpful in that, and how each of the change areas was explained. I found it to be really, really helpful. So thank you very much for your work on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're welcome. This was an idea that I thought would be helpful for the commissioners to see these 2 plans side by side and to be able to evaluate them this way. So what we're looking at here is the information tool that was put together. We'll start with Plan 4B, the simple adjustment plan. This plan was based on the 2020 adjusted population with a 10% target deviation and an ideal population of 83,633. This is achieved by redistributing census blocks between all districts to bring the population of each district within 10% difference from the target population. In Redistricting Plan 4B, simple adjustment, no council members were drawn out of their districts. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a table that compares the 7 districts, the total adjusted population from the scenario, the target population for the scenario, the deviation from target population, that's the subtracting the population and the population of the district from the target population, and the percent deviation from the target population. That's obtained by taking the adjusted population, subtracting the target population, dividing it by the adjusted population, and multiplying by 100. So in this plan, we've identified 15 change areas between the districts. Each change area will be discussed in the following tabs. Change area 1. This is going from District 2 to District 1. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see the district there. This proposed area change is around a little over 4,000 acres at 4,076 acres. And the total population proposed for this change is 20,375. Would it be helpful for the commission if I read out the description of the change?
Actually, Mr. Burt, well,
or what would
hoping...
be, yeah, what would be most helpful for the commission in this review?
Yes, I guess I was hoping to keep this discussion to about a half hour. I apologize for not mentioning that earlier, because we do have the public hearing. But I mean, maybe just briefly. I mean, I think we can probably, some of us can read it here. It's hard to read on the screen up there, but yeah, just a good overview. I mean, I'd say try to keep it as brief as you can, but still providing these details.
Yeah, this change runs from roughly MD 170 east to the top of the peninsula here. Madam Chair, you did have a question about if this does keep the Glen Burnie Town Center in District 2, or does it shift to District 1? To answer that question, it does shift from District 2 to District 1. Town Center is, apology for the overlay not fading off there, but the Town Center is in this area right here. You can, if the label come on, there's Arundel Center North. Are there any questions about change area 1? Okay, we'll move to change area number 2.
I do have one question on that,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Burnie.
sorry. Sorry, Mr.
So that,
Lipstein.
if we're moving Glen Burnie Town Center, if I'm looking at the map correctly, does it also move the area like around Glen Burnie High School into 1, or does that stay in 2? Yeah.
It looks like Glen Burnie High School would also be moving into 1.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sorry.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll move to the second change here. It's to move a portion of District 3 to District 2. This change is about 773 acres, and the population for this change is 5,244. This is a little bit of a smaller change, running down Baltimore Annapolis Avenue, down Jumper's Hole, and then back up Route 2, Ritchie Highway, and following the stream here. I believe that's Marley Creek, back up to the bridge area. Any questions about this change?
I'm sorry, Mr. Burke, were you planning on going through comparing these changes to other maps, or was this particular?
Well, comparing them to the changes, I mean, they're not the same changes in both maps. So I figured we could look at these changes for this proposal and then go into the second proposal and review those changes.
Okay, yeah, that's all right.
And I will speed it up, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So looking at change 3 here, it takes a portion of District 3 and moves it to District 5. This change is a little over 1,400 acres, and the population in this proposed change is 329. So this change goes from Route 2, runs down Route 2 to Magathy Bridge Road, over to Magathy and up the headwaters. Are there any questions about this change? Okay, change area 4 is a small change. This change was due to the change in the census block. Whenever it was run, it was one of the ones that we moved over for a little, just to get that little more population. There's the population in this proposed change is 19, and it's a little over, it's almost 4.5 acres. Change 5 here, you'll notice it has 0 population. This change is due to a change in the census blocks. The census block that this belongs to, I can highlight it here. You can see it moved a little bit, so it changed it would have changed the line for the district to keep that population within District 2. The same with the change 6 here. The census tract line moved. So. And the same for 7, just that little teeny tiny piece. So change 8 is to move from District 1 to District 2. This is a 2,100 acre change, and the total population for this proposed change is 19,414. It run on its western border is Ridge Road. On its eastern border is the Amtrak line. Northern border is Stony Run Creek. Any questions about this change? Thank you. Change area 9 moves a portion of District 4 to District 2. This is directly north of the Odenton Town Center. The acreage for this change is 774, and the total population is 8,556. It's bound in the east by MD 175, in the south by MD 32. On the east by Spring Branch.
So, Mr. Burt, does that, so you said it's just north of the Odenton Town Center, so it doesn't incorporate any parts of the town center in that shift to the new district?
It keeps most of the town center. We think that it might come over here up 175, but it keeps the core of the town center in. If we'd have to look at the census blocks here, and I think it was because these were such large census blocks that they were brought into too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Change 10. It moves a portion of District 1 to District 4. This is a change area of 3,100 plus acres. The total population for this proposed change is 4,345. It's bounded on the west by the boundary, the county boundary line. On the south by, what is that stream there? The Middle Patuxent, and the north by MD 175. Any questions about this change? Change 11 is to move a portion of District 4 to District 5. This is a tiny, this is a strip of right-of-way for Interstate 97. The population is 0. Change 12 is to move a portion of District 4 to District 6. This proposed change is a little over 5,000 acres, and the population for this proposed change is 6,235. This is bound by the South River in the east, Indian Creek on the north, Severn Chapel Road, and Harold Harbor, and the census block boundaries in the south. So change area 13 is to move a portion of District 4 to District 7. This change is, the area of this change is 417 acres. The population for this proposed change is 317. This is bound in the north by the Bacon Ridge Branch and Severn Chapel Road. The western boundary is St. Stephen's Chapel Road, and the Bacon Ridge Branch is the eastern boundary. Any questions? No. Proposed change 14, is to move a portion of District 7 to District 4. This proposed change area is 536 acres with a population within the proposed change of 4,403. This change is bound by John Hopkins Road on the north, Rudell Road on the south, and Davidsonville Road on the southwest, and Route 3 to the northwest. And the final change area for Plan 4B is number 15. It moves a portion of District 6 to District 7. This proposed change is 417 acres. The total population within this proposed change is 701. This proposed change follows the North River as its western boundary, Bacon Ridge Branch in the north, and part of the Bacon Ridge Branch on the east. So those are the 15 changes proposed in Redistricting Plan 4B, simple adjustment. I know there were some questions from the commission about affected communities. I'd like to try to address that right now. Just looking at the map real quickly here. So for change 1, the Glen Burnie community would be effective. And these are the communities that were identified in Plan 2040, the county's general plan. So their boundaries are a little bit larger than some communities might identify. So for change 3, we can take a look at cycle through. That would be in Pasadena. A portion of Pasadena would be affected there.
The portion of Pasadena, though, is closer to the Severna Park area, or is it actual Pasadena based on the boundary you've got there? Where exactly are the roads?
Let me zoom in, sir. We can see a little bit more there. Base map.
Right, so essentially it goes across, basically ends at the Magathie River now.
Yeah. Yes.
And all that would be in 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's that very northern little northwestern border? What road is, yeah, right up there? What is that?
It's a stream.
Okay.
Sorry, the base map's taking a second to load in there.
Okay, so it essentially goes up the west side of the Magathie
Yes.
and then kind of cuts over. Okay.
Yeah, if we go to change 3 here, it probably can, there's less information in the map. You can see it runs up the Magathie branch, crossing under Route 10 and to where it starts to cross under Ritchie Highway to the southbound lane of MD2 Ritchie Highway.
Right, just north of east-west. Okay. For Pasadena Road. Thank you.
Mr. Wadi, any more questions?
I'm trying to, can you go through the map a little bit for me, please? Because which one is the shifting from where to where? 3 to 5. It's going south, right?
Yes, this change does take a portion of District 3 and moves it to District 5.
All right. Okay. Okay, so the blue is 5.
Yes.
Okay. And so the overlap of with the parallel lines, that's
the change area of change that has gone from.
It just looks as if, I'm sorry, it looks as if it's 3 coming into 5 and not 5 going into 3.
Because it's change number 3, that's why too.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's what I was confused about. And so the natural boundary is the stream, and is there, and it had previously been a natural boundary, or was there a boundary that, was the boundary just political previously, or was it was no, I mean, not political, but by the census block previously?
Where the boundary was previously does follow the census blocks, yes.
Okay, and this one now?
The solid red line that you see, the bright solid red line, is the current council district boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And that's the road and some of the census blocks, and now would be the stream as opposed to the road.
Still the census blocks.
Right, but the stream would be the boundary as opposed to the road, is what I'm understanding from what you've given us in terms of boundary-wise.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just wondering, in terms of compactness, and is that, as it is now, how we would define compactness and contiguous, or if we change it, is it compact and contiguous, or does that, in terms of addressing the contiguity, now that we've kind of crossed the stream, or no, we've gone back from crossing the stream.
It never crossed the stream, Mr. Wadi.
Okay.
The red boundary here, I'll try to select this for you. What's selected in blue there is the change area. That's the area that has gone from District 5 or District 3, and we're proposing it to be in District 5. To test that for compactness, it's just, we're just showing where there's change. When we ran the district in, or ran the scenario in the Esri redistricting, we did test for compactness, and they all tested, they all passed the compactness test.
Okay. Okay. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, do commission members have any other questions about iteration plan 4B? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Burt, you want to go ahead and go over redistricting plan 6B?
Okay. Okay, redistricting plan 6B was a CRC commission of submission. We're going to call it CRC submission A, and we balance this configuration we balance the configuration to be within the 10% difference of the ideal population. So this adjustment sorry, I lost my place. My apologies. In this redistricting plan, there are 2 council members affected. Council member for District 1 would be drawn into District 2, and the council member for District 2 would be drawn into District 5. Again, below you can see the table here for this redistricting plan. And then you can see the overview map here with the change areas. There are 13 changes in this plan. The first change is very similar to change 1 in 4B. And it looks like the server has froze. So that's, sorry about that. There we go. Like I was saying, this proposed change is very similar to the proposed change in proposed change 1 in Plan 4B, almost encompassing the same area. This plan encompasses 5,758 acres, and the total population for this proposed change is 35,287. It does take in more to the south, the southern part into districts 2 and 3. Change area 2 is a 2-part change area. Some of the around Marley Middle School at the mouth of the Marley Creek there, and the southern portion right below Marley Station Mall. This proposed change is comprised of 762 acres and has a population of 3,249. Change area 3 is again going from District 3 to District 5. This proposed change area is 1,418, and the population in this proposed change area is 4,329. Proposed change area number 4, a portion of District 3 is moved to District 5. The proposed area of this change is 2,036 acres, and the total population for this proposed change is 13,318. Proposed change area 5 moves a portion of District 4 to District 5. This proposed change area is 10,335 acres. The total population for this change, proposed change, is 10,362. The next change is proposed change area number 6. It moves a portion of District 4 to District 7. This proposed change area has this proposed change area is 3,867 acres, and the total population of this proposed change is 3,728. Proposed change area number 7, District 4 to District 2. This proposed change area is 2,407 acres, and the total population for this proposed change is 13,632.
I'm sorry, Mr. Byrd, hold on just a second.
Sure. I'm sorry.
No.
Notice.
Is there an issue, or do we need a break for a second?
I'm just trying to get the files for it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Keep going.
Okay,
Good, okay.
Thanks, go ahead.
Okay. Proposed change area 8 takes a portion of District 1 to District 4. This proposed change area is 1,678 acres, and the total population for this proposed change is 1,066. Proposed change area number 9 moves a portion of District 7 to District 4. This proposed change area is 2,711 acres, and the total population for this proposed change is 21,132. Proposed change area 10 is a portion of District 6 to District 7. This proposed change area is 14,755 acres, and the total population for this proposed change area is 15,966. Proposed change area 11 takes a portion of District 5 and moves it to District 6. This proposed change area is 2,711 acres, and the total population for this change area is 21,132. Proposed change area 12, District 3 to District 1. This proposed change is 160 acres. The total population is 45. Change area 12 is a mapping mistake. It should have been assigned to District 3 and will be corrected moving forward. The population of 45 will be added to District 3.
So that will end up being a change?
That will not, that'll fall off, correct. That was a mapping area that I didn't catch and just wanted to note it moving forward. Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, that's a mistake. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And proposed change area 13 is a portion of District 1 to District 2. This proposed change area is 8,050 acres, and the total population for this proposed change area is 38,438. Those are the 13 change areas in Redistricting Plan 6B, CRC Submission A, Balanced Configuration. Are there any questions from the commissioners on Redistricting Plan 6B?
Okay. Any questions, commission members?
Thank you. That was a lot to get through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job. It's perfect. All right. Okay. Any further comments or questions on the district? Sorry, Mr. Kaufman?
Yes, so having had Mr. Telfort and Mr. Waddy and I had attended our meeting last week to discuss this, I want to thank you all. Right before the meeting started, I was asking for the change areas. That's exactly what this is. So I apologize that at 6:59 the question seemed like it was for something that wasn't, this is exactly what we were looking for, and I think that it helps to provide a great deal of clarity in terms of the conversation. So thank you for your work in that.
Thank you. Mr. Fleckenstein?
I appreciate it. I don't have any. I'm going to hold my thoughts.
Okay, great, thank you.
I did have,
Mr. Waddy?
I was wondering if you did a test for compactness on any of 6B?
It's Mark Brett from Planning and Zoning. Yes, to export or to close any redistricting plan in the software that we used as redistricting, you have to run compactness tests, and 6 also pass for compactness.
They did 6B, and in terms of contiguity, was there
No issues.
no issues? It crosses an entire, I guess, body of water, the river, and there was no issues with it. And what is that district? The new District 5 or 6?
It didn't have an issue. The software didn't have an issue with it, no.
And in terms of what's that District 5 that goes like up and around, there were no issues within the software.
No, there were no issues in the software.
And the dragon that Mr. Kaufman mentioned earlier from District 7, there were no issues in it comes up, goes around the river and comes down and breathes on Annapolis.
No issues with the software.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Waddy. And yes, I would kind of want to just reiterate what Mr. Kaufman was saying earlier. I really want to thank you for all the work and the time that it took to pull these together. I really thought the maps were great. Also want to thank Commissioners Kaufman, Waddy, and Telford for taking the time to pull these together. It's been really, really helpful, and I think really kind of, for me at least, it kind of really pulled a lot of things together, and it's like, okay, we're making progress here. We have iterations to share. We have information that we do have to share that we could potentially get to the council for consideration. So I think it's really great. Thank you for all of your work.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Tremendously.
Yes. So, okay. Thank you. All right, I guess then we will then go ahead and move on to the public hearing part of our agenda. And actually really not sure exactly what to expect for our first public hearing, which is why I was concerned and wanted to limit the map discussion to a half hour. We do have a couple individuals here for public comment. I guess, Ms. Corby, has anyone else signed up since the meeting began, or since we have the list with the 2 individuals' names?
So I believe every commission member should have a copy of our sign-up sheet in their stack of papers that they received this evening. We had 2 people to sign up this evening. I also wanted to note for the record that we have received 6 comments through the online testimony tool, all under the topic of redistricting the county. Those have all been shared with the commission and continue to be added to the record and will be maintained with a copy of the record of your deliberations for future purposes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, I guess, and before I call up our first witness, I do want to mention that each individual making public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. And I guess who is keeping our time for 2 minutes? Do I need to do okay? But please don't have me do that. My stopwatch will be running over. I'll forget to stop it. Okay, the first individual that has signed up, Mr. Svenson. And thank you. I know you've been here at all of our meetings. You've put in the time with us. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, my name is Kurt Svenson. I'm a citizen of Anne Arundel County. I share Commissioner Snow's belief that there is and has been for far too long a lack of true representation on the County Council. Mr. Snow has described his proposed map, Plan 6, as telling a story about what Anne Arundel County is. But whose story is it to tell? His? The current county council's? I think county voters should tell the story each and every time they go to the polls. This whole district drawing thing, by definition, is divisive. As a citizen who can officially reside in only one of the many geographic areas within this wonderfully diverse county, I feel like the story being told by these district maps is pigeonholing me and all of us collectively. We are all Anne Arundel County citizens, yet we have very different priorities and areas of interest, many of which are not defined by what part of the county we happen to live in, and do not have the support of 50% of the voters. True representativeness includes significant minority groups across many different dimensions. Our existing single-member, winner-take-all voting system applied to 7 geographically defined districts cannot produce a truly representative result. True representativeness cannot be realized until the threshold of exclusion of our election system is reduced to less than 50%. A proportional representation voting system applied to one county-wide multi-member district will reduce the threshold of exclusion from 50% to 16.67%, thereby providing significant minority groups a real opportunity to elect candidates of their choice, regardless of where they might live within the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Svenson. Okay, and next we have Mr. Patrick Enright.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, ladies of the staff. My name is Patrick Enright. I live on Huntwood Drive in Gambrels. I'm here tonight just to address population. As I see it, there are 3 types. There's total population, there's voter-eligible population, there's ethnic and racial population. And I brought tonight with me the slip opinion from a Supreme Court decision in the Evanwell versus Abbott case, the Texas case. It was decided in April 2016, so it's relatively recent. In this decision, the Supreme Court upheld the total population apportionment scheme for redistricting as opposed to the other two, and that the percentages of deviation from ideal population, so forth, as the Commission has addressed here, is very significant. And they have presumptively accepted 10% deviation. And when you discover when you're calculating deviation from the ideal to the most populated district and the least populated district, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, so I'm going to use the term absolute value. You use the absolute value, not plus or minus. So if, in the case here, they said, if the largest district is 4.5% overpopulated and the smallest district is 2.3% underpopulated, the total deviation is the addition of the 6.8. So that's the kind of parameters in terms of avoiding challenge based on the misuse of population, pure population, in your redistricting scheme. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that up as a matter of record. So, I did it well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Enright. Appreciate that. Okay, I guess that concludes our public hearing for this evening. So moving on in our agenda, back over. So actually, next on the agenda, I wanted us to have a conversation about the resolution that was introduced before the County Council at its last meeting. I think, as all of you know, have heard Councilmember Volke, he introduced a resolution to extend the time frame for our work. As you know, the councilmanic districts in the resolution that passed by the council, we are to have our work done and the proposals to the council by December 31st of 2021 for their consideration. discussion, mostly because we are working with a timeline where there's a filing deadline of February 22nd with the Board of Elections for individuals that want to file for candidacy in those districts. The other part of our work, as you know, is the charter amendment piece and the charter discussion for changes, and the resolution has us completing that work at the end of March of 2022. That resolution, it was introduced. It was not discussed at the meeting on December 6th. The council does have a work session tomorrow, and I've been asked to attend that work session to speak on behalf of the commission and kind of where we are on the issue. And then this resolution will be discussed before the county council on December 20th at its meeting that evening. So I really wanted to have a conversation amongst the commission members for direction and so forth going forward, but also because I will be speaking before the council members tomorrow at their work session. And I guess I will say, and I know there was some conversation about this, and I did send an email out that kind of expressed my views on how this should proceed and move forward if we did feel we need more time. And in my view, that should be a recommendation coming from our commission here, making that asking or requesting some more time. But I will say, as I've thought about this more, and I kind of thought that was a little premature, just because we had not yet had the maps. I think at that point, Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Waddy and Mr. Telford were meeting to pull together maps. We knew we were going to have public comment, and I felt there was really additional information that we needed before we can make any sort of determination on that. And I guess, obviously I'm interested in all the different viewpoints of the commission members here for this discussion, but I guess I will just I'll just share my view on this and how I envision us moving forward at this point. And as I said a few minutes ago, actually seeing the maps, I think you guys did a great job pulling together some iterations and maps for us to consider. I think we've made great progress in the last couple of weeks to where we actually do have maps. And I think in my view, and I think I've said this before as well, I think we do have some population differences that we really need to consider. And I feel that we're not doing our job if we don't balance out those districts to ensure we have a fair and equitable representation going in for the 2022 election cycle. So I think for me, it's important that we continue to move forward with our goal to actually provide districts, a proposal to the council. And I guess I'm really feeling like with the iterations we have, I guess I'm envisioning what our report would look like would not be us as commissioners sitting here voting on one iteration and that's what it's going to be, but we have a couple options that we can present to the council. Ultimately, they have the authority. We're here to make a recommendation. It's the council's role to take that recommendation or one of the proposals if they choose to do so, or they can request their own variations if they want to do something differently. But I really do feel it's we have a responsibility to put that out there. And I'm feeling now with iterations that we have, plus we have some other simple adjustment maps that that Planning and Zoning has already presented to us. And if we want to provide three options, we have the time to do that, I think, and get something to them in time. Now, I do think, writing the final report could be a challenge. I know we have the holiday in there, but I do feel like we could be able to have some draft in place that we could get to the council by the designated time frame that we are working under. And I think then we could try to finalize our final report shortly after that. So I throw all that out there because, as I said, I feel I'm going to be presenting to the council tomorrow in a work session, and really feel I want to make sure I'm speaking accurately on behalf of the commission members when I do so tomorrow. So with that, I know Mr. Snow, I think your light was on first. Mr. Kaufman?
David Kaufman. First off, I want to thank both of the individuals who spoke today. Both of your comments or both of your additions here were valuable. Mr. Svenson, you present obviously a very interesting solution to a larger challenge that if we were to consider, and I think everyone here knows this, obviously, if we were to consider that we're talking about a charter amendment that would, it would be a much greater involved process than the task ahead of us with regards to approving these maps. But I do want to acknowledge the contribution to the discussion, and I want to say that the work, when we got together last Monday, the effort really was to reflect what were two prevailing discussions on this commission. One was a basic adjusted map that really does not take on any significant effort other than to adjust the population, and a second map that reflected Mr. Snow's input and feedback. And then at the conclusion of that meeting, we made the determination to request the change map, the change district, or the change areas, so that people who are looking at these can have more information. And I think that work reflects the two maps that the commission has presented. So again, I'm grateful for the work that staff has done on that, and I'm comfortable that these two maps represent what this commission has said are our interests that it wants to be able to address, that have been addressed in concrete terms.
Mr. Snow?
Sure. So first of all, I do want to express to the fellow commissioners, I did send out some messages, and it was brought to my attention that the tone of those messages may have implied meaning that I did not intend. I obviously am very passionate about this topic that we're discussing now, but I did want to affirm my belief that every one of us sitting on this stage, this platform right now, we want to do the very best. I respectfully accept the admonishment from the chair about the process and how we do these things, and you have my commitment to be mindful in the future of how we communicate on these different things. So I did want to be on the record just letting everyone know that I fully believe that we are all committed to doing this job right. As it relates to the timeline, my concerns have not changed. I have expressed them, and I don't want to belabor the discussion, but I do want to explain more carefully that one of the big passions for me, specifically as it relates to Anne Arundel County, is to reconnect people with their government. And the fact that on our first public hearing soliciting input on this process, we have two individuals that are very invested. They've been here every step of the way, but very discouraged that we did not get more public input. And I think that there are multiple reasons that could be. I think the time is a factor. I think the timing is a factor. But I strongly believe that this should be a collaborative community effort that people should feel invested. I have to confess that as we move along this process, right, the writing is on the wall for me. I kind of see where things are headed, and I feel that sense of maybe demoralization, I suppose, is reflected in the broader community that say, what difference does my input make anyway? And I think that is another thing that reduces the relationship that a government should have, especially a local government should have with its community. So the idea of a expanded timeline, which speaks to some of my visions about what I think the process should look like. We had discussed early in the process about, we had questions from Commissioner Waddy about communities of interest and demographics and economics and all of that data. And we had initially said that we would get a concept down and then drill down, right? We would get an idea, and then we'd look at the demographics, and then we'd look at the economics, and then we'd have a conversation around what these maps could mean for our community and where we're going. And I feel that at this pace and at this stage, we're not honoring that commitment to have a deeper discussion, which is what was clearly communicated we would do. As the process stands, our next public hearing is virtual on Thursday, and then I do believe we did set up a meeting to discuss again the week after Christmas and before New Year's, and then presenting a map. So that is a concern. I also really appreciate the work that went into creating these maps. I can tell you that is one area that was of great relief to me, to see that we got a map earlier than expected, and we're able to look at it and to look at the different changes. But once again, it was a very limited involvement, right? We had a small subgroup working on it, and then even in my own opportunity to kind of look at it, I have a lot of thoughts. I spent a lot of time going over the maps, but, as far as getting into the different aspects of what we're looking at, I'm still uncomfortable with the pace. That being said, I don't plan to belabor this issue. I've stated my position on this, that my views haven't changed. I do think the process is rushed. I would love to have a more robust approach to this, especially considering the history that we've done with this, but definitely appreciate the idea that the sooner we get a map, the sooner people get an opportunity to be included in this process. So those are my thoughts. Obviously, I have strong reservations about the pace, but I won't elaborate much further.
Mr. Waddy?
Thank you. I just wanted to, again, thank our community members for participating and submitting written and verbal testimony. And I'm so grateful, at least, that we have a Spanish language interpreter here as well. And we've had the administrative office provide us with these wonderful maps. And, I really appreciate everyone that's been involved in this. Thank you, OPZ, as well. And I wanted to say that the number of changes, the discussion around the number of changes in each of the maps helps me to consider, which of the simple adjustment maps that you all provided us would be something that I could think about as having a high number of changes or a low number of changes, and which one would be amenable to what we have in this moment. So that wouldn't put too much stress on the council members, and wouldn't put too much difference for those who want to run for office in the current council districts, is really what I'm thinking. And so I definitely appreciate you all, and I wanted to thank you, Mr. Snow, for, like I said yesterday at our last meeting, thank you for, breaching the discussion in regards to the ending of this, the shift to the council. And I thought you did, a good job moderating that discussion at the last meeting, and I do appreciate you bringing it up in this meeting as well, Chairwoman, and so that we could continue that discussion prior to the council meeting that you'll be attending. I did enjoy my time with OPZ, Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Telford, going over the maps, thinking about them, and how the different demographic populations will be affected, and what the outcomes of some of these maps would be on our community. I too share what Mr. Snow says is the issue of community and the government, and I do, as I've kind of said on this panel previously, I feel like our ability to address some of those issues, I think, is our esteemed member from the audience that spoke.
Mr. Enright or Mr. Svenson?
Yeah, Mr. Svenson. Mr. Svenson, thank you. In terms of his recommendations, both in written and verbal testimony, have gone to sort of the need to address these charter issues, and I think that is something that we can move forward towards, and will help to address the trust in government that is being attacked daily. That's really what we're talking about, is there's a lack of trust in the government that's being presented across our institutions. And this is a part of creating trust in government. How do we create trust in government? Through our districts. From what I see, we have a sort of degrading of our democratic values, and how are we going to address that. And I think that our public hearing is an opportunity to at least put out there that there is an opportunity for the public to speak on these issues and provide us with testimony. And I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Mr. Waddy, if I could ask you a question. You mentioned addressing things to the charter issues, and that's the next part of our discussion. So as far as moving forward with maps, you would like us to provide a proposal to the council within the
Yes,
timeframe specified, and
definitely.
you want to address the other issues through the charter discussions we're going to have later. Is
Yes,
that
I definitely agree with that. I think the timeline that we've already discussed is one that can get us forward and can address people who want to run for office. As I said, we don't want to disrupt their people who are deciding to file on February 22nd. Many of them are working on the current maps, and if we can find maps that allow the least amount of change for them, then I think that would assist. And that's why I appreciate OPZ providing that analysis.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. I wanted to make sure I understood where you were going with your comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Fleckenstein?
Thank you, Tom Fleckenstein. To the extent that the chair was not here the last meeting and didn't really get the benefit of all of our discussion on this, I too won't belabor my position, but I will say that, you know, I remain of the opinion, particularly as we've now gone through this another week or two and gotten to where we have with these maps, that I don't see any reason right now to ask for more time. The position that I had taken was, you know, it was 2 weeks ago, of course, but that, you know, we've got some time, let's work through it. If we feel we need more time, we've got more time to ask for more time. And I still feel that that's true as we are here today. I will also say, though, that particularly in light of the work that OPZ has done and Mr. Waddy and Mr. Telford and Mr. Kaufman has done, I'm actually feeling more comfortable with what we've accomplished so far. So I'm feeling like it's probably less likely that I would feel that we need a lot more time to do this. Now, again, I don't know where this is going to go. I thought we'd have more people in here tonight. Again, I'd like to hear more public comment. Of course, obviously, in addition to the two folks that are here tonight, we've had a number of submissions online. I expect or I suspect that one of the reasons that we haven't seen as many folks come here tonight is because we do have the virtual option available on Thursday. I certainly think in most scenarios people are apt to take advantage of that, but I also think given that we're going through the holiday season and dealing with a lot of the scheduling issues that Mr. Snow has brought up, that people may be taking advantage of that. So I would expect we'd hear a lot more then. And certainly I want to hear what folks have to say. But overall, my position on the resolution, I suppose, hasn't changed, with the possible exception of the fact that I do think with where we've come, I can't imagine we need anywhere near going through this particular redistricting process all the way through April. So certainly, even if we got to the point where we felt we needed some more extension, I certainly wouldn't be supportive of going into April. I think where we are, what we've accomplished, I don't see any reason we would want to take that kind of time to do this. So that's my position on this. I'm more than comfortable moving forward with the timeline we've got. And I understand the council's put the resolution in. They've started the process, so certainly there's no pressure on them at this point. So my position remains that we've got time to ask for more time, but that we should keep moving forward. And I think what Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Telford, and Mr. Waddy have accomplished in the last 2 weeks has really helped us considerably. It's helped me tremendously, and I really appreciate them doing that work that I didn't have to do. And I certainly appreciate the comments we've gotten here tonight. Mr. Svenson's comments in particular, I think, are something that I'd be really open to revisiting and discussing when we get to dealing with charter revisions. Charter revision recommendations at that time. So I really appreciate him coming in here and offering up, well, you know, I think another, let's call it an outside-the-box idea, which I think we've already started to discuss here when it comes to representation and where we might go with our charter revision commissions, right down to, looking favorably upon the general concept in Mr. Snow's map as well. So I do appreciate that, Mr. Svenson, and hope to have further conversation.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Fleckenstein. Okay, Mr. Telford?
Larry Telford, thank you for the public showing up tonight. I want to reiterate what's kind of obvious is that we're here in the middle of December, the time of Christmas, and the only two people who've shown up to talk about these maps tonight are the two people who've been here literally from day one. I happen to live in a community that would actually be affected by one of these maps moving into a different district. I can guarantee no one in my community knows we're even meeting tonight. I can guarantee no one knows we've been meeting since September. A question I have is Mr. Burt's great presentation of the changes in the maps. Have we reached out to these various communities to let them know, hey, there's a map out there where you stay, there's a map out there where you're going to change and go into a different district. If you care about that, come out in mid-December and let us know what your thoughts are. I'm assuming the county exec's office, constituent services, knows how to reach HOAs and community associations like that. Is there any kind of outreach effort that's been happening so far to boost interest, particularly in communities that are going to be impacted? I think if you're going to end up staying in the same district, most communities aren't going to really, they're going to say, fine, this is what they're used to anyway. These districts haven't really changed all that much over the past 20 or 30 years. But do we know anything about what kind of outreach that's happened so far?
No, thank you. That's a good question. I think at this point, information has been on the website. I believe council members have shared information through their offices, and I'm guessing, I'm not sure, maybe Ms. Corby can probably give a more thorough response than that, but I know, I'm going to assume that the County Executive's Office of Constituent Services, actually, I can't remember if the last update I saw coming out from that office had information about our Charter Revision Commission meetings or not. I can't remember. But this obviously, this evening was the first evening that Office of Planning and Zoning actually talked through these two iterations. So I'm gonna guess if people are actually paying attention and listening, we're probably going to have quite a few more people here Thursday or virtually Thursday night if they are aware that the maps have been discussed.
I'm looking at the email from the County Executive's Office of Outreach, and I did receive an email regarding the maps with the picture of the maps and discussion about it. And it was at December 8th, so yes.
Okay. Second, the reason why we have a deadline, of course, is because there's local elections coming up in November, the general election in June for the primary, and more importantly, the filing deadline on February 22nd, I think, is the date. I think what we found out a couple weeks ago from the county staff is that the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario, is on February 7th, which is the first meeting in February for the council. That would be the first time they could actually vote on the legislation that would create a new map. Of course, if there's one amendment attached to that, because of the hoops of open meeting laws and all that other stuff, it would get pushed back at least 2 weeks to the day before the filing deadline. In addition to the lack of public input, I think a simple question is, and Mr. Fleckenstein, you can speak to this because you've actually run for office. Mr. Snow, you've run for office. What would be a fair heads up for you two when you ran for office to know that here's how the maps are, do I want to run in this particular district? In my hypothetical here, one of you may actually end up being in a different district. The way this works right now is the absolute best case scenario is you'll have 10 business days to make a decision about do you want to run for county council or not. Now, we're having a big debate in this country about early voting days, and we have states that have 10, 15, 20 days of early voting. We're told that's not long enough for the public to show up and check a box to say who you're voting for President of the United States. If you're going to make a time commitment to run for office and a time commitment to serve in office, which I think is surprising for people who actually get here, is 10 business days enough for you to decide if you want to run for county council? Just if the two of you could comment on that, and particularly your own experiences. How long did you go through the process from the second you said, maybe I want to do this, to the time when you actually said, I'm definitely in? Thanks.
Mr. Fleckenstein?
I'm happy to address it. I'm sure Mr. Snow will as well. And it's actually a great question, Mr. Telford, and it's one that we've kind of tossed around before as one of the considerations, and candidly, it's something that I have taken some time to think about. How would this affect people who are running? My perspective on it is kind of as follows. If you're a person who right now, and I don't mean any of the incumbents or the people that have decided they're not running for re-election or those that they are, but if if you are an individual right now who considering running for county council, the chances are good you've been having that conversation, maybe with yourself, maybe with family, maybe with friends and supporters, for some time already. And I'd be willing to bet that, and Mr. Snow probably feels the same way, when you first make that decision, and maybe I'm going to look and run for office, one of the very, very first things you do is you look at your districts. Where do I live? Who I'm going to run against? What does the boundaries of the district look like? What communities would I be looking at? And I would venture a guess that the majority of people who are considering running for the council or who have committed to running for the council have already done a lot of that. And there's a couple of, the fact that we have some maps out there currently, the fact that there may be some, if the council doesn't get around to enacting these maps, let's say till February, the fact of the matter is that those maps are going to be out there for a much longer period of time for people to start to look at. I mean, for instance, let's say we decide December 28th that we're going to send the council these two potential maps, right? As of that point in time, if you're a candidate for office, you're dialed into this now, you've been dialed into this for a while, and it's not a situation where you're putting yourself in a position where, hey, I've got to wait for 10 days. I'm going to have a grand total of 10 days. You're going to have a long time to look at both of these maps. Now, certainly if you're looking at these competing maps and you're a candidate for office, yes, there could be some very significant differences in your decision if, the council or us were to go with Plan 6B versus, let's say, 4B. Because as you point out, you've got some significant communities that are moved. But certainly, let's say I live in the Broadneck Peninsula and I want to run for the council, and I know at the end of December, hey, these are likely the two maps I'm looking at. I've got ample time to kind of get myself together and determine what I'm going to do. And depending, I might say, hey, if they pass map 6, I'm out. I'm not going to run against XYZ, or those aren't communities that I know well or whatever. But if they enact map 4B or some iteration of that, then I'll be in, or I'll make the decision to be out one way or the other. I think that anybody who's going to be running is putting the time in now, has some familiarity with what we're probably doing, and really will have plenty of time to digest those maps between the end of December or the beginning of January and the end of February. As you well know, and I think Mr. Snow can attest, you have people. I think the day that the most people sign up to run for office is 8:30 on the day of the filing deadline, right? When the line to the Board of Elections is out the door. So I do think a lot of people, maybe not the most serious candidates all the time, or the people that are really committed to running or being representatives of their community, but a lot of people make that decision at the end of the day. And I don't think if we're getting maps out at the end of December, early January, that we're putting anybody behind the 8 ball. And I think they have ample time between then and February to really evaluate where they live, what the district looks like, and whether or not at the end of the day they want to run. So I'm much less concerned about that than I was when we started having the conversation.
Mr. Snow?
Sure.
He's responding to Mr. Telford.
He's responding to the question. Hang on.
So just for my own curiosity, Mr. Fleckenstein, how long did you take to decide to run for office?
It's a great question. I mean, I ran a couple of different times. It was a deliberative process. It wasn't something that I decided overnight, but I know plenty of people who do. I can tell you, if I was considering running for the county council right now, I wouldn't be worried about when the council enacts these maps, unless it got to a point where there were no maps to consider. If there's maps in the public that we know the council is going to be looking at for a couple of months, or at least that are out in the public, I would have no problem in this process now deciding if I was going to run for the council with the time frame, assuming that we get to it, that we can we can recommend a map or 2 or 3 or whatever by the end of December or early January. It would be that would give me ample time to make a final decision. And again, if I'm considering running, I'm going through this deliberation currently. So, at the end of the day, the final border most likely is not going to be something that I'm going to be worried about making a decision on at the very last minute.
Mr. Snow?
It's a very good question, and I can tell you, incidentally, when I envisioned the redistricting overall, I actually outlined my thought process, which spanned 3 or 4 months, and how I look at a district and what I want to know about the district before determining if this is a good fit for me and if I'm a good fit for the community. And so it does involve a deep dive into understanding what are the demographics of my district, what are the economic conditions that exist in the district, what are the communities, and when I envisioned this whole redistricting plan, I kind of was, my idealistic view was that we would approach this as if we were people that wanted to represent our communities, and we put an hopefully put an incredible amount of thought and consideration into understanding what this county looks like and what a good representation would look like from a deeply understanding what we're impacting. I mean, what are the major community associations? Where are the neighborhoods? Where are the boundaries? Where do people buy their groceries? Things along those lines. And to me, I took that on as a responsibility, which is why I have been so aggressive. And I know not typically I try to be as reasonable as possible. I've been so aggressive about the time frame because I feel that as commissioners who are basically tasked with redistricting or drawing the legislative districts, we should put as much time, if not much more time, in than someone that is considering running for office. So to answer your question, in my personal experience, when I ran in the 4th council district, it was a 3 or 4 month discussion. It was a considering all the different layers of who's being impacted and how and what that district looks like, you know, where I'm traveling, how does it fit with my schedule, with my family, and all of those things. I've been unashamed and unveiled in my desire to strip the politics from this process. And I have to confess, like, man of my, what was that?
I'm sorry. I said, oh my God. Oh my God. Go ahead. Please finish.
I have been unveiled in my desire to get a map through that is not driven by the desire of you know, current sitting politicians to approve maps that work only in their favor. I have been pushing to say that we need a community-focused approach. And to me, the best case scenario, I mean, we were talking about we want to minimize the chance, minimize the impacts of people that are deciding to run for office simply by taking this discussion out of the current upcoming election cycle gives us an incredible amount of latitude to have the conversation that we need to have, right? The very fact that the only reason we're pushing this is so that we can get it in for a filing deadline takes this once-in-a-decade process and explicitly ties it to a political process. And to me, like, this just gives us the ability to have a map. Nobody that's going to be voting on the map, if we extend the deadline, is going to be voting on a map that impacts them, right? Like, they have nothing right now. Whatever map they look at, they're going to say, well, how does this map impact me? How does this map impact my political future? Which to me just poisons the whole process, right? We want a map that represents the community. So my perspective from the beginning has been to say, let's have a proper process. Let's go through the details. Let's get as much information like we had discussed early on in this process, as I distinctly remember as questions were asked. Even Commissioner Waddy said, what about these metrics? What about the communities? All of these things. And it was repeatedly said, well, we'll start here and then we'll work down that process. So to me, this is about stripping the politics from the process altogether.
Ms. Mansfield, could you do me one favor in the working group? Is it tomorrow you're going to?
Yes.
Can you find out from the county council if they'll make a commitment to pick one of these 2 maps for us?
I can raise that.
Thanks.
Sure, those can. Okay.
Mr. Telford, the requesting from the county council to pick one of these 2 maps, you mean to advise us at this point, or whether they will agree to accept one of our 2
Getting
maps?
back to Mr. Fleckenstein's point that if you're running for office, you're already running for office and you know what the 2 maps are. Of course, if there's a 3rd map out there, which is the one the council actually picks, then that's going to change who decides to run for office, because you may find yourself in a completely different district. That's my point.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Ms. Time later.
I don't mean to step back, from this conversation because I think it's a great conversation, but I am still a little bit focused on the lack of participation by the community, because that's what this is all about. We have 585,000 people in our community, and we have 9 people who have weighed in on the ability to actually look at these maps. The presentation Mr. Burt gave today was very, very informative to me. I think many of our community members are not aware of everything that's going on or what is included in redistricting. Would it be at all possible for you to put that information into a PowerPoint or something like that that could be posted so that our community members would be able to see this information? I'm sorry to make you get up.
Mark Burt, Planning and Zoning. We do have products that we can develop, like the story map that we looked at tonight. There are ones that look like more of a website feel where you can scroll through and can provide information. Those take time to develop, of course, but they can be developed if the commission so chooses to direct it.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm sure that that's not an easy task. But the chances of that happening prior to December 16th, which would be Thursday, and it's currently 8 p.m. on Monday, probably most likely would not be able to happen. I feel like people need to see more than when I just look at these 2 maps without having any type of software to compare them and see exactly what the differences are. It's a little difficult for me, who has been sitting here through all these meetings, much less for my community members.
Yeah, and I guess, Mr. Burt, to follow up on that, I guess I'm wondering, I mean, we have the displayed maps, and we know we have a PDF of the map, and we have the descriptions from the maps that you've pulled together and the kind of the change areas and the overall description of those. I mean, is that something that would be able to be pulled together? I don't want to say easily, but I mean something that could be pulled together to get out on the website for people to view.
Yeah, good question. This, again, Mark Burt from Planning and Zoning. We can publish that same presentation that we saw tonight, that same web map that you got, that the commissioner has been looking at. We can publish that and make it public tomorrow afternoon, so the public can at least have the chance to go through it and look at the same way, have this access to the same information that the commissioners have access to.
I think that would be very helpful for us, both as members as well as speaking with the community, to get a few more than 9 of the 585,000. Thank
Understood.
you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Burt. Mr. Kaufman.
David Kaufman. I absolutely appreciate the dialogue and the discussion regarding timelines for candidates. I do want to make sure that we refocus our discussion, though, on the 585,000 people who are going to be voting, or who obviously 585,000 people won't be voting. I get that, but the energy behind the discussions around an aggressive timeline have always been around trying to address giving those people who live in our county the most accurate or most opportune way to be able to have a say. And so I guess whatever decision we make, and I'm keeping a door open for either pathway of whether we're extending or not, any decision we're making is going to have a negative consequence. We have to accept that. And so the issue is, are we comfortable? Is the work that we complete over the course of the next 3 months, if we do extend this, will that ensure that the council is going to approve it any more so than if we submit something tomorrow? And those are factors that I think are very real issues that we have to face. But I feel like what we have represented here and the nature of the descriptions provide us with an opportunity to be able to allow folks to have a say and to be able to have their voice be represented in a district that is geographically addressed based on what we're expected to do.
Mr. Fleckenstein?
I just have a general question to Ms. Corby. Once we make a map or multiple map recommendation to the council's going to have a version of it. They also will hold public hearings on the redistricting, correct? Okay. That, just so everyone here knows, that was my understanding, and that certainly, to an extent, also informs my position on the timing, because, again, we're not the only place for people in the public to come out and make comment. And in fact, the longer the council has these maps, the more the public may have to comment on what the end result actual maps may be. And I think that we should consider that part of the process will actually be more beneficial to the public, even than us giving the public more time to give their feedback to us. So I do think that even if we decide, or even if we end up sticking to the current time frame, we're not limiting public input on these maps to two things. And you know, I might even feel differently if the maps, if the redistricting map that the county was going to use for the next 10 years was something that we came up with and we had the sole or end result authority to create, I would probably also feel very differently and probably be much more in line, at least right now, with where Mr. Snow is on this. But I think it's important to keep that in mind. There's still going to be a very lengthy public process potential for people to get involved. And again, let's see what happens on Thursday night. You know, I'm hopeful and I expect that we'll get more people because it's virtual. We may not, and we may find out that there's a significant reason that we haven't, and we may want to reconsider that at that time. I think I've also made it clear that I'm not opposed to needing more time if we get to the point that we feel we need more time.
All right, Mr. Snow, and then I have a comment. I was kind of wrap things up a little bit.
Sure.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a simple remark that the amount of time and energy that the commission invests into these maps speaks directly to the weight with which the council considers our input. So consider the significance of that, right? Our voice, based on something that we rushed and put together, potentially leaves the door open for discussion to say that, well, whatever you recommend has much less weight as opposed to taking the time to invest into doing a thorough process in which we can go before the council and say, look, we invested a lot of time and energy. I mean, if you look at the previous cycles, it spanned months. And, you know, there's a huge wealth of information that goes into the report, and that carries a lot of weight. So if we're actually hoping for this commission to present something that will allow the council to make a decision based on the information and weight with our recommendation, to me, that speaks to what we're trying to do, which from the beginning of this process, I have been saying whatever we recommend to the council, they have to make a really, really good reason to not go with our recommendation, as opposed to rushing through it, which basically opens the door for, you know, a lot of discussion to say, well, you know, there's not much discussion, we didn't go into different levels, not much public input, so we'll just kind of take it from here. And to me that just kind of, I feel cheated out of that opportunity.
Right. Mr. Fleckenstein, I'll let you go ahead quickly.
Okay. Tom Fleckenstein, the other thing to consider here, and I hear everything you're saying, Mr. Snow, and again, I may ultimately end up agreeing with you as we go through the month of December. But I think if we're going to compare ourselves to what other commissions have done in previous years, or how the council's gone through it and how much more time they put into it, or whatever else we think about the process, we're at the point right now where we may be recommending to them 2 maps. Who knows? Maybe we hear some things on Thursday, or we get some additional feedback from planning and zoning. Maybe we have a 3rd map or something that's something in between some of these. But if we were to do that, then candidly, we've done a much better job of getting things together and preparing things for the council than at least the 2010 group did. As I understand it, there were multiple maps, potentially up to a dozen, that were presented to the council. And so, to your point, I think if we're in a position where we're able to do what we've done, give them 1 or 2 or 3, candidly, I think we've done a better job of doing exactly what you're talking about and giving them something that's more focused, something that's more credible. It's not like we're just saying, the heck with it, here's 11 maps, you guys go decide. So that, again, food for thought.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I agree. I think we've invested a lot of time. I think the council realizes and understands and knows we've invested a lot of time in doing this, and I think they know that we take our job very seriously. I think Mr. Kaufman said, we almost have, we don't have a great outcome if we do nothing, because then we have a large number of individuals who are not fairly represented in their districts, because we do have districts and the deviations are out of line. And to me, I still come back to that I think that it's important that we balance that out to ensure the individuals in those areas are fairly represented going forward. And Mr. Cummings said, we're kind of, I'll say we're damned if we do and damned if we don't kind of a situation, but, we may have a bad scenario on either side, but for me, it weighs more heavily on doing some sort of an adjustment just to fairly balance out those districts so those individuals are fairly represented going forward. I guess, and Ms. Corby or Ms. Blair, one of you may be the better, appropriate person to ask this. I know some of these conversations came up at the last meeting, but I guess if we go forward, and let's say, by December 31st, if we are able to come together, we have 2 iterations of maps. I mean, yes, we may still get some public comment on Thursday, but we may find these are 2 iterations that we want to include in our final report. So a lot of that work has been done, and we may want to put those forward for the council's consideration. And I'm speaking more, I'm not specific. I'm more just kind of throwing out scenarios here, but I guess going forward, we know that the council, obviously, they have work to do. I know they have a meeting January 3rd. They have a meeting January 18th. Now, at the point in time, we have some final maps to propose. I mean, we can do that in a draft form, a draft report of some sort, so they would have the information so they could begin their work. Because I know I don't want to get, I know if we go wait too long, we may not be able to get, they may not have time to finish the work by the filing deadline. But I guess I'm thinking if they're able to introduce something January 18th, that would give them adequate time to do so. Is that?
Sure. Lori Blair, Klassmeyer, Deputy County Attorney. So the way this has worked is that the council does receive a report. Now, does it have to, I know in 2011, they received an interim report and a final report. So could this commission present an interim report? That I would not see an issue with providing an interim report so long as it's complete. The members of the commission vote. The members of the commission agree that this is what you want to put forward, and perhaps some details need to be filled in the finalized report. That report, if it's provided December 31st, I don't think that it can be turned around. You got to remember that what the council needs to do is consider that. They need to consider that report in some fashion where, if they're considering it together, it has to be in a meeting, and it has to be in a public meeting. So could they consider they could consider the report at their January 3rd meeting, I guess, not in a legislative form, but in a discussion of the report itself. They could have a meeting, they could call a separate meeting. They could do it at their January work session. The next legislative date being January 18th would be the date that legislation would have to be introduced to make the February 22nd deadline. Because that legislation could be considered on February 3rd. So, yes, the answer is that there could be some type of interim report that is presented for them, that they at least know what you are recommending, even though that report may not have all of the I's dotted and T's crossed, but it should have this final recommendation of the commission so that they at least know what they're looking at. And I'll let Ms. Corby comment further on how that would be considered by the council, but that's just kind of my notion of how they would do it. But.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blair. Ms. Corby, anything to add?
I really just agree with Ms. Glassmeyer. If the bill was introduced at one of the January meetings, I will point out the typical turnaround is 2 meetings later. I did mention last time that because January is a 5-Monday month, that we could squeeze in the advertising requirements and still meet the mandates of our charter and the state constitution with that. So if it was introduced on the 3rd, it would come back typically that first meeting in February. If it was introduced the second meeting in January, again, on almost an expedited schedule, we could get it to come back for a hearing and vote that first meeting in February. But I will point out that that is not the standard. It's typically we schedule things out 2 meetings later after it's introduced. Unless there's a compelling reason to do that. And again, we can meet those advertising requirements. And that is a discussion that I would have with the chair because she is the one under the charter who actually schedules those public hearings.
And if I recall correctly, the second meeting in February is February 21st, which is 1 day before the filing deadline. So that's the issue with introducing on January 18th and then hearing on February 21st.
Okay, just to make sure I have all that clear in my head. So even if, let's say, we have a draft interim report, at least it has the maps we want to propose in it and some narrative with it. The council could consider that, at least discuss it on January 3rd. But now they would have to get everything together, the bill drafted and so forth. It wouldn't be able to be introduced until January 18th.
That's what,
then,
yeah, because they have to decide what they're putting forward. So there has to be some discussion of your interim report amongst the council. And for the council to get together and discuss, they have to have a public meeting. So, you know, if you give that to them on December 31st, yes, they could logically discuss it on January 3rd. Whether they would be ready to move forward after that or not, that would be up to them, I guess.
Right,
But,
okay. And then after that, okay. So the 18th of everything, obviously there needs to be time for discussion. They need to have this introduced. The hearing would not be until 2 weeks later, right? And then, okay, discussion from there. Okay, thank you. All right, back to members of the
Motion to
commission.
adjourn.
Oh,
I move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. I was just moving to adjourn, that's all. So I appreciate our discussion.
well, now first I want to ensure that if the members are comfortable moving forward in that format for right now. And I'm.
I'm not, but I just want that for the record.
We can.
Larry Telford, I support at least the concept of the resolution that's going to be addressed next week.
Okay. Does anyone feel we need to take a vote on how we want to move forward? Or I can just explain all of this tomorrow to the council and we'll, okay. Ms. Hangleiter, come.
I would agree to, I'd like to continue to move forward, but I do think we're moving at a pace that is exceeding our ability to complete this in a detailed way that would truly present something that I feel like is a good representation. So I would like to keep moving forward and see how much we can get done, but I'm not sure that I fully believe we'll be able to do it and get it passed. Keeping.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to other business.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
do you think that it would be helpful to you and the commission to know who the press release went to? There was some mention of the communication. Would you like to hear a quick summary on that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so there was a press release that went out on December the 8th, and it went out to a whole bunch of different news organizations, WMAU, WBAL, WNAV, WTOP, WYPR. Also went to the Capitol, the Baltimore Sun, and a brand new small town email sort of newspaper out there called Naptown Scoop. And they've actually been doing some nice coverage of our meetings as well, the council meetings, I should say. And I do note that in their most recent email, they provided a synopsis on this meeting and the information on joining and registering to speak.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Corby. That's helpful. So, okay. Sorry, Mr. Snow?
Yes. Would it be appropriate now to ask if we could start our meetings at 7:15? I know that when we met last week, people expressed a great deal of relief of having just a little bit of breathing room. I literally physically cannot get here till like 7:05, as has been reflected in the notes. So is that something we'd bring up for discussion later, or especially when we're in person?
Yeah, well, I think, our next meeting's virtual, and it's already been put out publicly
Sure.
and publicized that we're starting at 7.
Okay.
So that's virtual, so hopefully that won't be a problem for you.
But I meant like
down here.
if we meet at the chambers in the future, because we do have a lot more discussion, what would that process look like?
Sure. I mean, I don't have any problem starting at 7:15. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have our public meeting, public hearing this Thursday, 7 o'clock, virtual, and then I know we are scheduled for another meeting with December 28th at this point. Okay, that morning for virtual meeting, okay. Okay, great. Nothing else for Mr. Kaufman?
David Kaufman, not to add anything unbearable, but is there a way that we can start processing how we're going to encourage involvement and participation in the charter amendment phase of this process? I know that we're focused on the maps, but I do want to make sure that we don't have this same conversation that we feel like people aren't participating or able to participate or know to participate or want to weigh in. And if whether it's the current tool or whether or not there's any messaging that's going out with our press releases regarding the map input, but I think there's value in indicating to the public now, take a look at the charter, take a look at things that have impacted your life, and if there's things that you want to weigh in on, be thinking about it now so that you've got a runway to be able to address that and have public input, because I think there's the second portion of our work here is significant as well, and I want to make sure that we're not creating a sense that people don't have a chance to weigh in on that either.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, good suggestion. Okay, if nothing else for the good of the order, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Second? Mr. Waddy?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.